Hey everybody, how we doing? It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. And that can only mean one thing. It's college football frenzy. My name is Paul Spencer. That, of course, is the OG of the airways, Mr. Bill Furman. Bill, how are we feeling today?
Oh, I tell you what, Paul, it's good to be back. Hopefully you had a great Christmas with the family, and
Yes.
I certainly did, and on a little extended holiday so far. But hey, it's college football time, and it almost seems like every hour there's another change. There's something crazy going on in the wild, wild west of college football, and I'm not
Mm.
sure it's good or not, Paul, to be honest with you, but we're going to find out some about it tonight.
Yeah, Bill, first, I did have a great Christmas. You as well. We talked during the holidays. It's the best thing about it is spending time with the family, yourself with the grandkids and everything, Bill. But you're right. I tell you what, Bill, I'm glad I paid attention in school because I didn't think I would ever have to count this high with all the transfer every day, just going higher and higher, Bill. It's just, I don't know, Bill. I mean, this is the first season, honestly, that I'm really not even watching bowl games
Right?
because I don't know who's playing. And God forbid, Bill, if you put a bet on one of these games, you're going to be out of luck when you find out who's playing and who's not playing 5 minutes before the game.
Well, absolutely, and I think and we have a great guest tonight going to join us here in
Yes.
just a few minutes, in Pat Waters, and Pat can maybe shed some light on this. I think, but you have the Florida State ranked number 5 in the country. We know how that all played out for them, but they go to get on the plane to go to their bowl game, and their quarterback isn't going. Who knew that? And, I mean, it is just absolute chaos. They're down 14. I believe 14 is the recent number of starters not playing for Florida State, and now their quarterback, who was already their number 2 quarterback, he's not playing either. It's just we talked about we wanted to see chaos leading into the bowl season.
Not
We're
this kind of
getting
chaos,
chaos in the bowl season.
I tell you, we talked about after Florida State was left out, of course, of the BCS contention there. Well, you know what? What better way to play Georgia at 5-6 here? This is a statement game. Well, the statement was made, Bill. Transfer, transfer, transfer. That was the statement 100% made.
Yeah, and I certainly understand. I think from the players' standpoint, that they're mad or whatever their deal is. They gave their all. They did their all. They did everything they were supposed to do and got left out. So I'm thinking they're saying, we don't owe anything to anybody.
True.
And we're going to take care of number 1 here because you didn't take care of us.
100%, Bill. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of mad about it being a fan of the college football, Bill. Number 1, I mean, you're taking away from my enjoyable evening where I take time off to go and watch this game here. Of course, I'm old school, Bill. You're the same way. But then again, I understand how these players feel. It's a job. It's an audition to another level, another system here. I can't disregard them, Bill. I mean, they're making the right decisions based on what's best for them too, not the university anymore.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And again, we'll talk to Pat about this too. But I mean, NIL has not turned out, I think, what anybody and probably Pat too thought it was going to be. And now it's pay for play, and call it anything you want, but it's pay for play. And, I don't think it's a good thing.
I get it. Well, Bill, speaking of NIL, how about in a second we bring on, Pat Waters here because, Bill, I know it's only an hour show, but man, I tell you what, Bill, I wish we could just take this on to part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 because so many questions, so little time. But, Bill, there's different background tonight. Kid says you're the road warrior. Where are you at tonight, Bill?
I am in Indianapolis tonight. Last week, I ended up having to. Well, we didn't do the show. I was in Wilmington, Delaware. Next week, I'll be in Atlanta, and then I'll be back to the home base. So we're on a holiday road trip to see all the kids.
Well, Bill, you know what? I'm glad Pat's on because one thing I'm going to ask Pat, if we can get you an NIL deal with maybe a car contract, because all this traveling you're doing, we might have to get you an NIL deal with a car program, Bill.
Let's do it. Well,
you know what? Without further ado, let's bring the man on here, Mr. Pat Waters. Pat, how you doing?
Hey, fellas, what's happening?
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, Bill, you're traveling more than a lot of these college kids in the portal. It sounds
right.
Right. Awesome stuff. Yeah,
oh my goodness. Well, when you have your kids spread out all over the place, Pat, you couldn't get them all together for Christmas and you're able to, what do? You go see them instead.
Absolutely. And I hope you guys don't mind, since my Mountaineers are playing tonight, I'm repping the WVU hat in support of them.
No
That's
problem.
my alma mater, and I don't think we had any kids this year good enough to go in the portal, so we got them all playing tonight. So
Hey, good for West Virginia to make a bowl though. They started
yeah,
out, it didn't look like it was going to be a very good year for them, but they bounced back and did pretty well.
they did.
Mhm.
They did. Now it's testament to they got a good system in place. We got a local Downingtown kid that is a true freshman up there. He's not playing yet this year, but he'll be under center, I think, next year. So things are good.
Nice.
Now, I believe you guys have a St. Joe's prep product, Josiah Trotter there, correct?
Yeah. Josiah's same class as
Mhm.
Cooper Young from Downingtown West. But yeah, no, they got a bright future. I really like where the Mountaineers are going. But I do say that every year and have since I graduated there a few decades ago.
And they do open against Penn State again next year, right?
Yes, I'll be at that game for sure.
That that's one game I will be rooting for your team, the Mountaineers against Penn State. Okay, because I am a Notre Dame fan, and this year was disappointing to me. At least Bill gets a New Year's 6 game, and I get the Blockbuster Bowl. It hasn't been intact for the last 30 years. So
He still admits he's a Notre Dame fan, Pat.
Yeah. But Bill, where do we start off with this? I mean, this is only a 60-minute show. Where do we open up with this NIL?
Well,
Where do we
I
open
want to ask Pat just a simple question, kind of kick this thing off. Pat, I think, as I said in the opening, I think when NIL first came up, I think we kind of thought it was going to be the kids are going to make some appearances, they're going to sign some autographs, they're going to get a little bit of money, and we're going to take care of them and take that off their plate so they don't have to deal with it. Now it's turned into the wild, wild west. You're visiting colleges all over the country. Kids are moving faster than they're brushing their teeth. What happened?
Well, I'll tell you, what July 21st, 2021 was a day that the Supreme Court approved this, like you said, opened up the Wild West. And we jumped in. My background is traditional professional sports marketing. And, I said, obviously, let's take what we did there, put brands with athletes and do it the right way. The reality is we've had a lot of success. I partnered with Sean Clifford in Limitless NIL, and we are, I like to say, the number one boutique NIL agency out there. And we do traditional deals where we're putting athletes with companies, showing an ROI, teaching the guys and the student athletes, in all sports, how it works and how you have obligations to the company. It's about moving the needle. Both sides win, all that traditional stuff. But the reality, Bill, is that is a minuscule part of the NIL money that's out there. The reality is, like you said, it is the Wild West. Where the needle is getting moved is, pay to play. And it's, that in conjunction with the portal and what schools have to do to keep kids now is write checks. I mean, that's the nature of where it's evolved to. And, that's it's not even the schools and the collectives. It's, donors that are getting involved and behind this to try and bring the best kids into their schools. So it is truly, it's a ever-changing thing. And like you said, we do this again in a month, it's probably going to be a different landscape when we talk in a month from what it is today. That's how quickly it's changing.
Yeah, every day you look at the transfer portal, of course, this gets bigger and bigger as we talked earlier. But Pat, I do have a question for you. Bill and I always talk about high school recruiting. That's the biggest thing now. The transfer portal's out there. It's really not much of a big deal anymore. How does the high school players benefit? The NIL deal, not throwing a pass and until they get to college, which they haven't even thrown yet. Are they being outed versus the transfer portal players first? Because it seems like there's no such thing as a 5-star athlete or recruit coming anymore. It's all about the portal is where you build and where people are getting the money. How does that reflect to the high school athletes?
Yeah, and I think you used the word benefit actually initially, but where you were going with it is I do feel it's a detriment to high school recruiting because listen, the college coaches are busy. They're A lot of them are, going into bowl games, going into playoffs, going into conference championships when the key recruiting high school time is out there, where kids are systematically going in the portal and they can just literally search the positions they need. You got a kid with a body of work that at the college level already. So that's going to be the first place they grab from. And, some of these guys are grabbing kids with 1 year eligibility left. I mean, with COVID, it's wacky. You got kids that graduated in 2017, 2018 that are still have eligibility left somehow, some way. But it's, they see a 3-year kid that has a body of work at a school. Well, guess what? Hey, they go to the collective. Let's figure out a way to get this kid in here. And they have a hit list of players and needs for their particular team. I've spoke, a couple weeks ago on this topic, and I really feel that the NCAA, there's a lot of stuff they're going to have to get in front of here, right? There's going to be a correction. Me personally, I believe that, scholarships given out, you have to allocate a certain amount to high school kids. Otherwise, it's going to be a major problem. And I think that they got to take, for example, if they have, I don't know the right numbers, if they have 18 scholarships available, 9 or 8 have to go to high school athletes, right? To keep them, in the game as well, because it could quickly get to the point where these guys are not sending their recruiting guys to high schools. And unless you're a 4 or 5 star recruit,
sure,
you don't have a chance of playing FCS or FBS football. I mean, it's that simple now.
Hey, Pat, to muddy the waters even more, we talked about this probably 2 months ago here on this show, and I wasn't aware of it. And I've coached in Florida for a long time, but haven't coached for a while now. But Florida became the 34th state to approve the NIL for high school kids. They haven't rolled out yet what that's going to entail. I didn't know there were 34 of them. Surprised the heck out of me. I had to look it up.
You surprised me.
34. I mean, it's insanity.
It is insanity. And where the only thing I can think where that comes into play, because listen, quite frankly, unless your name's Bronny or somebody that ilk, I can't imagine a brand, really a traditional marketing deal with a high school student for, NIL, right? So let's call it what it is. It's going to be your bigger schools being able to say, I won't name any, but them being able to say, hey, $25,000 plus your tuition to come play your junior and senior year here. And that is, potentially what it could be in my mind, but 34 is shocking. I know Pennsylvania was one of the early schools on. We as a company at Limitless have decided that's where we draw the line. We don't broach high school athletes when they're done their playing days and they're looking at the college process. Most of them are reaching out to us to talk about a potential for Limitless to represent them in traditional NIL.
Well, I like that. You're not poaching them in high school. Let them enjoy their high school, time, learn it there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they should be doing. 100%. That's really, that's our philosophy on high school. It's these kids, they're younger and younger. I mean, the ones we're sitting down talking to, and some of these kids that are in the portal now needed to make decisions, NFL or college, 19 and 20-year-old kids. I just can't imagine, the weight of that decision on some of the kids, because NIL has gotten to the point where literally the NFL is going to have to take a look. There's some of these deals floating around out there where a kid could make more in 1 year transferring to a school as a grad student or his last year than if he were a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick his entire first contract. I mean, it's crazy the money out there right now.
Bill, how many times have we said that it's better to stay in college, right? To make more money. If you're going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, stay in college, get a deal, and see if you can play another year. If you can, play it,
Yeah. Hey, Pat, I have a question for you. The Florida State situation with the quarterback and the Texas situation with their number 2 quarterback. Those guys, well, in the Florida State case, Rodemeyer hasn't had a chance to show himself. He has no resume, basically, Neither does the kid at Texas. But they both pick up and leave. What's a better gig than being the incumbent at Florida State? Unless it's just money driven, it's somebody wherever the music stops, you jump on a chair. Somebody just offers him a whole pile of money that Florida State's not going to offer him, so he doesn't have to compete at Florida State.
Yeah, and it's my understanding. I'm not intimately involved with anybody with Florida State, but from what I understand, they are looking at several kids to come in there. So maybe that kid already saw the writing on the wall and decided that he better, have some conversations, because obviously I don't know the exact details, but he just opted out like today or yesterday.
Yeah, he didn't get on the plane. They went to get on the plane. He didn't get on.
Well, and that's, listen, a lot of things. It's hard, man. These are all competitive kids. I don't have to tell you, Bill, you guys have all been around professional athletes and their drive and their egos. And sometimes, like I said, instead of saying, hey, let me go out there with the chip on my shoulder and show everybody on national TV what I can do, it might be like, how dare this school didn't, believe in me enough to be the guy next year. They're looking to replace me in the portal. I don't know if that's the total case and exactly what happened with him, but there's so many dynamics that come into place. And I just, I talk to our kids, I talk to a lot of kids, I talk to parents about, listen, like we talked about, hey, for some kids, it really makes a lot of sense to go an extra year. You can take care of your family, improve your draft stock. You can do a lot of things, but there is a flip side. I know, there's several kids that went in for another year this year. They were looking at either second or third round in the draft last year, and they've slipped to the back end of the draft, if not a priority free agent. And God forbid, I know, the kid from Florida State, I think broke his leg, the starting quarterback.
Travis.
Yeah. And God forbid, injuries are a part of these decisions. And, you could have your dream taken away pretty quickly if it goes wrong. And like I said, without naming any kids, there's a lot of stuff you got to weigh. And, I kind of was talking, somebody else hit me up, might bring it up. So the portal, I even looked up today because it seemed like so long ago, but the portal, I guess, kicked in on October 2018. From what I researched today. And if you remember, in January of 2019, that's when Jalen Hurts went in the portal, right? So he went in the portal from, he got benched at Alabama. Everybody knows about that deal. Went to Oklahoma through the portal. And I read it was either Oklahoma or Miami. He was in between. No fanfare with that because there was no NIL money floating around, right? So that was truly a business decision to put himself in the best situation to improve his draft stock with what he had, right? It was it didn't have anything to do with money, had to do with his future, right? So he obviously jumped in there, had a great season at Oklahoma. The rest was history, and was the 53rd pick in the NFL draft. And, doesn't have to worry. His kids, their kids, and a bunch of kids are set for life.
And the same thing worked out for Joe Burrow at the time too. Yeah, but again,
Ohio State to LSU,
no money involved at that point.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing. You said I literally I say it is the wild wild west. When I heard you guys talking, in the pre-show, that's what I refer to it to everybody I talk to about it, because it is changing by the day, by the minute, and just the amount of money and the decisions that are out there. And guess what? Coaches are beholden. If you have a kid that got paid $1 million or $1.5 million to come in and be the guy at your school, well, guess what? He's the guy. And whether or not there was a kid patiently waiting for 2 years that was a Gatorade All-American, 2 years ago, his teammates are all behind that kid thinking it's his turn. Well, guess what? When that kid gets the NIL money, he's the man. And it creates a lot of funky dynamics in schools. And you talked about the bowl games. I'm really anxious to see what happens if they put this playoff system in place. It's gonna really change, the dynamics of what happens.
Pat, I do got a question for you. Both of my kids graduated from St. Joe's Prep, and the Kyle McCord situation. Coming there, he wasn't even named the starter yet, and he gets a $120,000 Mercedes AMG to drive around. Now, my question to you is, of course, he was going to go to Nebraska, sort of committed, sort of did, sort of didn't. Next thing you know, he's on his way to Syracuse now. Now, does he lose any entitlement to that Mercedes dealership, to do the commercials or do any kind of a publication or appearances that he may have with his contract?
Yeah, I don't know his specific deal, but in a lot of our agreements, we there is a multi-year agreements we have are based upon the athlete being remaining as a student athlete at that particular university. My guess is it was probably some kind of lease deal that he got through the university. Penn State, they have a company that has given, I think they gave 22 Teslas out to the football players, and they're a few of our guys are driving them there, and they're all one season lease deals. So my guess is, that car wasn't given to him. It was a kind of a loaner, and a company, promoting, wasn't that was that Mark Wahlberg's company? I think the dealership was some type of celebrity's car dealership, if I'm not mistaken, if you look that up. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. That's a perfect example too. I think Kyle McCord was, kid was 11-1 and kind of, I think, mutually shown the door, and where he's at Syracuse now, right?
Yep. And in McCord's case, I think they kind of ran him out of town up there in Columbus for losing that game. And in his case, probably better for him. He took the lower road, I think. Not a whole lot of pressure going to be on that Syracuse team this year as they're trying to rebuild under a new coach. It's not like he's going to the hot seat of USC or Alabama or Texas or any of those others. Probably a good move for McCord.
I would agree. I think it's a good fit. I mean, he truly wasn't. That's the thing at Ohio State. The coach is lost 3 games and 4 games in 3 years, or 3 games in 3 years, and they were all to Michigan, and he's on the hot seat for
they want to run him out of town too.
Yeah, exactly. So it was either probably Kyle first and then him second if he doesn't beat Harbaugh next year.
Right. Hey, Pat, I heard an interview the other day that I really thought was interesting, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was on the College Football Radio Network. And the guy was saying, and he was using this as an example. He says, if North Carolina offers you $500,000, say, and North Dakota Community College Technical School offers you $700, take the $700, because the pro money is not guaranteed. Only a minuscule amount of guys are going to make the pros. So you can hedge your $200,000 or take your $200,000 now while it's a bird in hand. I thought that was an interesting philosophy to take there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, it's always a tough thing kind of going backwards in competition to, jump into the league. I'm assuming that, I think, right. Are they both FCS schools, or no? One's what level?
No, I think the second one was just a made up school.
Yeah. I didn't have my, but the bottom line is, let's assume you're taking a step back in class, going from FBS to FCS, which some of these kids are doing. And because there is NIL money all the way across the board. I mean, D2 schools are paying, FCS schools are paying. I know, Bill, the linebacker for Delaware this year was picked out of Westchester University and was given $50,000 to go to play middle linebacker at Delaware. So and he was an All-American at D2, and he was an All-American at Delaware. So they made the right move. I mean, the kid I think had led the team in tackles around 100 again this year. But listen, at that point, unless you're projected as really a day 1 or day 2 draft choice, take the money, take the money. And, obviously you want to put yourself in the best position to be able to showcase yourself, but all things being equal, yeah, kids should do that and set themselves up for whatever, because it's about 1%, less than 1% of these kids are going to be playing on Sundays no matter what. So this is an opportunity, but I think it's I would agree with that statement in short.
Pat, I have a question for you. You mentioned, the names like Bronny James. I was just looking at earlier, $6.1 million worth value. Then you got Shedeur Sanders, about 4.1 million, of course. But my question to you is like, okay, with the transfer portal here, we've seen two quarterbacks transfer this year. One, Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, Dante Moore from UCLA. Both goes to Oregon. Both have deals over $1 million. How, what is that about where you have two quarterbacks? Of course, I think Gabriel will be the starter, of course, but how does that play out? Is it just a better value for Dante saying, well, I'm getting $1 million to go here. I'll sit and wait a year and get this contract, and then maybe I can transfer again. How do you, as the president of your own company, justify that situation like that?
So, and again, I'll tell you, I don't know their particular eligibility remaining, but if you guys help me out with that, but my guess would be if they're both coming in, there is some type in these NIL agreements, they structure them over your time remaining. So they could be backloaded to keep the kid there. I mean, the schools, there have been cases where schools have committed X millions of dollars to kids and not fulfilled it for whatever reason. And then, to prevent a kid, they're not going to, the deals I've worked with and I've seen structured are generally a percentage up front, whatever the money was agreed to, 50%, then 25% halfway through the season, and then the other 25% at the end. Those are on 1 year deals for kids. And then, 2-year deals, it would be something over the life. It would be a smaller percent up front. It would start over each year that would kind of pay through.
Gosh, yeah, it was just a little surprising where two, could be potential All-Americans. Gabriel, I believe, Bill, was he in his 5th or 6th year, correct? From UCF to Oklahoma.
School, I think.
Right. Yes, this is his third school being transferred to already. His third destination here. Dante was a freshman this year, committed somewhere else and ends up in Oregon. But you're paying two contract quarterbacks here $1 million each, and it's just wow. There's a lot of money to be had out there, huh?
Yeah, Phil Knight's not going to run out of money.
No, we know that.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's a pretty big bankroll there.
Yes.
And I would say that, listen, they're planning for their future, right? And they're putting a system in place where they got the kid this year, and they've made assurances along the way. And listen, I've always said to the kids now, and parents I talk to, hey, it's one thing for sit down, your coach tells you you're the starter. It's another thing when he tells you you're the starter and the collective at your school is writing you $1 million, $1.5 million check, because guess what? That speaks larger than whatever the coach's words were, because, you don't want to bring in a kid, at that, get the collective to put that kind of money out for a kid that's not going to be the man. Right. So it really does change assurances for these athletes.
Wow.
It does.
So much has changed. So much has changed. Wow.
Well, Pat, I'm trying to, if you take a step back and look at this whole chaotic thing here, what happens in the big picture? Say when you have, I'm just going to pick some teams out. How does a Purdue compete? How does Vanderbilt compete? Fantastic educational institutions. How does, say, a South Carolina compete? And certainly a Temple. Where does Temple go? Do you end up with, say, 30 schools that are the 30 schools and everybody else's feeder programs?
It's a good point, because, it ultimately, there are kids that will go to those schools and, ball out and showcase themselves. And at that point, if the schools aren't producing, competing in winning seasons or bowl games, you're going to get these kids. They're going to go into the portal and get plucked by schools that will give them. So they don't. it's really, the cannibalism starts from the other schools, but the very, basis of the problem is that these schools just can't compete with the checkbooks that, like a school like Texas Tech, or those schools in Texas, have a lot of money. They have a lot of boosters, and
Yeah.
that's the other crazy thing for me. My experience with NIL here is, you get the collectives, and you have the collectives that have money, that's dumped in there. And I don't know if you guys knew how collectives started. They were 501 C3s. They were started up as charities, a charitable foundation, which is kind of crazy to me. But people were actually, the first year, the rich donors that were putting money into these were using it as a tax write-off.
Wow.
The IRS quickly put a stop to that. We knew that was going to happen. That's like one of the where we're different. We were sitting back and we knew that one was coming very quickly. But now you have boosters that will come out, and whether it's their foundations or their personal wealth, they'll come and start a conversation by saying, "Hey, we want this kid of yours. We want him so badly that we're going to write you a $2 million check. Whatever he gets from the collective, whatever he gets from the school, that's gravy. But we want to get your attention by committing, this kind of money to the kid." And that's just what has, started to happen out there. And it's insane. And like I said, I don't have a solution. At some point, can you really think about this, guys? Would you ever imagine colleges having to put like a salary cap or an NIL cap on things? But it's got to get regulated at some point, because listen, the NFL can't be too excited. It's whacking out kids, ability to, go in the NFL draft. And it's really changing a lot of the landscape.
Bill, before we always talked about, Nick Saban being the best recruiter out there. Just, going back in the day, just walks in there and says, well, here's what I can do. I can get you to the next level. I'm the NFL farm squad. Now it's just, you coming in there, Nick Saban and two of the boosters. What I can offer you is this, but let me talk to, the booster here. What can I offer you? Here's a check for $2 million. Come on down. It has really changed, going from back in the day where kids wanted just a bus ticket to, to and from practice, to and from campus. Now, as Pat said, Penn State, some of the players already got Teslas. It's amazing how far this has become. It benefits to the athlete, of course, which we knew how much the universities were making, of course. The players weren't getting a penny off that. But Pat, I want to ask you one thing. With I'm a big gamer and I love playing NCAA football. Back in the day, all the numbers were on the uniforms. Now, with the NIL out there, they're starting for the first time the players' names on that. Now, does that become a part where every player will be paid at least some kind of gratuity toward that from ESPN or whoever makes the game?
Yeah. That's I did read that there will be some type of royalty. They can and kids that get on the cover of boxes will receive a fee. It's crazy. I listen. I mean, don't get me wrong. One of the things, like I said, out there, the good stuff, and it's unfortunately such a small part of the NIL dollars that float around. To me, I don't have a problem with that. With the kids getting paid, whatever my son plays all those games, not me. He beats me too bad if I even try and think about doing it. He put me in my place last time I tried to play him in one of those games. But he like these kids, if they're using their name, image, and likeness for the game, they're making money. So the kids should have a share. And that's really, to me, the true wholesomeness, if you can say it, in NIL, because I'm a marketing guy at sports. I put athletes with brands. I've done it for 20 years. That's why I really was excited about getting in the NIL space. But then, this whole other, pay to play thing jumped out. So that part, I have no problem. Caleb Williams, however much money he got, the thing I was most excited for him was he had a Dr. Pepper deal that was a great campaign that Dr. Pepper put together for him. And I thought that was awesome. And that's what, continues to give me some hope that these kids will learn something in this process and not just be, turned into spoiled, paid off athletes out of this, that's all it's going to be about, is where the money's coming from. Because listen, I said in the beginning, I thought this stuff could fragment teams. And the one thing I will say, Bill, not to mention any schools in the, out there, but some of the schools I've worked with that have struggled and don't have the purse, the money in the coffers that the bigger schools do, they've done something that I thought was really smart. And I shudder to say this, because you start losing value of a dollar when you're talking this. They've decided that they're going to cap what they pay their defensive players. So in essence, so they don't have this infighting, this, that, and the other. So basically all the kids, and it's a Power 5 school, all the kids are getting 25 grand on defense, right? It was first one kid's going to get 150, and then it starts talking. Then they try to keep a kid out of the portal by offering them. So they basically just said, we're paying everybody 125. So they have to go out. They know what their budget is. 125 times 11 is what, 275. And that's their budget. That's what they have to raise from alumni to satisfy their starting defense. And it's a crazy world, but that's what it looked like.
Jeez. Oh, we just lost Bill for usually around this time, Pat, as I said, Bill would hop off something with the internet. We don't know what it is, but I'm 52 and I've always watched college football, being a Notre Dame fan. And I always said that Notre Dame can't get the athletes, with the academic wise, yes, talent wise, no. But now I think that could change with Notre Dame being one of the, a big dynasty schools, of course, with the money, the boosters and everything. Do you see, like what Bill said earlier, is it going to come down to the richer get richer and the poorer get poorer? How does this basically work? Because with the BCS opening up to 12 games next year, 12 teams next year, we'll see a little bit different reflection there. But are the richer going to get richer, pulling out the checkbooks for the power teams, of course, the Alabamas, the Georgias, of course, Michigans, Ohio States? Are they still going to be committed to just pay the players to win championships?
I don't see it changing right now, because it's the Pavlovian theory. Once you get a positive result from an action, you're going to keep going back to it until there are some restriction put on it, to be quite honest with you. And I'll tell you right now, I remember, I think it's Brady Quinn was involved when Notre Dame started up their collective. And I remember reading something that he said in the very beginning was Notre Dame will not pay to bring players in. That was at the very beginning. And yes. I still remember that quote from him. And I think if you Google it or research it, I know he said it. And, I'm sure he's shaking his head how quickly things have changed, right? With their last two quarterbacks that they bought in hired guns, right, for one season.
Sam Hartman, of course. Yeah, I was, when Eichholz called him the gold, the lottery ticket of the transfer portal last year. Sam Hartman, the first thing he came in, he got, I think it was beat headsets for his entire, basically the entire team there. And goes with what you said with Brady Quinn. Well, he couldn't even sign an autograph for $5. So how times have changed. But what I want to ask you too is also, how does, name recognition goes a long way. We talk about Sanders. We talk about even Marvin Harrison Jr., of course. Also with Bronny James, of course. That name recognition, the fathers, of course, that name. But how do they justify what a player's worth would be if you walk into, a room and a potential 5-star athlete is coming out of high school, either Florida, wherever he may be? How do you walk in there and say, well, this is what, I hear what I can get you. How do you relay that to a child versus, money wise versus I'm going to get you playing time? How do you justify that, Pat?
You got me on that question, but I will tell you much. It is crazy because I know you've seen out there, they have these different companies that put an NIL value on guys. Matt Rule, went on, what was at a press conference a couple of weeks ago and stated that, hey, if you want a big time quarterback in the portal, you got to write a check for $1 million or $2 million. And when people start putting hard numbers out like that, it's amazing. I do have some guys that I work with that are kind of out there. They're beat writers out in the um, chasing guys around in the portal, trying to figure where they land. It's unbelievable the information they have, and I trust them implicitly. I had a kid, a DN, that was looking for a new home potentially, and his school was offering him a little bit of cash, and I made a call. I said, "Hey, what does a DN, a Power Five, top 25 DN graduate student, 1 year left, get in the portal?" And right away, 150 to 550. Like it's like, there is a value for these guys, and I feel like I have a decent feel around it, but it's really how badly they want somebody. And listen, there's even situations now where schools and alumni are saying, "Hey, we land this particular quarterback, we'll bring him into the school, and not only does he come in the school, we're going to give him an open to buy for what receivers he likes in the portal to bring." I kid you not. It's unbelievable. I was like, "What?" Like it was Carson Wentz all over again. Like, what? This is crazy.
Wow. So that's like a college athlete being Aaron Rodgers. Pick who you want at wide receiver. We'll go get him, right? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. Yeah.
Hey, Pat, you mentioned something early on in this conversation that has struck me because I've been thinking about it all along. You actually called these guys student athletes, and not many people use that term anymore. You did, and I'm with you. But I feel like we're losing sight of the student part here, and we're a minor league sports program. I don't know if that's fair either, but what about all these kids jumping all these schools? Are they ever going to graduate? And then they don't make it in the league, and now they've got their little pile of $100,000 or whatever they got, and they have no degree, and now they're back out on the streets and they're 21 years old.
It is a problem. And we can go back to people talking about, "Hey, well, we got to do something for these, these schools are making all the money. These kids aren't getting paid." Well, remember, at the end of the day, the old school was, "Hey, you're still walking away with 4 years of paid tuition, which can add up to $300,000-400,000 in a lot of cases, for kids. So you are getting a free education out of this." Now we've expanded to the point where, student athlete they're a student and they need to maintain whatever de minimis grade point average to stay eligible. That stuff's still intact. But you're right. I would love to see graduation rates, but also remember that, I think you were talking more for the 5-star super recruits that they're not going to recruit. I think, like, at the end of the day, there's kids that will make several $100,000 and have a 4-year college career and get their degree as well. And that's a great scenario. That's where I was saying, kind of what the school I referenced earlier. I feel like that there should be some type of, whatever your budget is per school, it's got to be, there's got to be some kind of spread it across the board, right? With these kids, because it's gonna, the graduation rates are gonna drop big time. But it's always encouraging. We had, for Limitless, we had 5 or 6 kids, that are going into the NFL draft or portal, and all of them are actually have 1 year left, and I'm happy to say they're all they've either received their degree or they're going to receive it this spring. So those are the kind of kids we love to partner with.
Sure.
But Bill, you're right. The reality is, it's the education part is getting, left way behind there. Yeah.
But I have a question for you. We're talking, high school athletes going to college already making $1 million even before they get to campus, of course. Will this ever fall to high school, recruiting wise, where you want an eighth grade player to come play for you in eighth grade. Reason why I asked that, both of my kids went to St. Joe's Prep, and we're talking, then it was $19,000 a year for one student. Now it's $25,000 a year. They did, cut me a break, of course, coulda, shoulda, woulda. They found a way to, compensate my money there. But is this ever going to fall down to high school kids saying, Bill, IMG Academy, I believe that's what, $30,000 a year down there as well, where a player can't pay for that. And are they ever going to come down to that situation?
Yeah, IMG is like 70 grand.
Oh, well, geez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had a kid from Downingtown West that got recruited down there. And, my son's class, he's currently playing at Penn State, but he came back up to West, after there. But and I was going to make my St. Joe's University joke, or my St. Joe's Prep joke, sorry.
Here we go.
Oh, no. They got an unbelievable program there. But no, you got the Bishop Gormans, the Don Bosco Preps. Listen, they have huge budget, alumni budgets. They are going to recruit kids. And that's what I was saying. There's no doubt that there will be NIL money to get the best high school kids moving around. There's no doubt. And I go back to, I forget whether it was 5 or 6 years ago, one of my friends' kids was, getting recruited, and the guy came up from one of the Power 5 schools, and he literally, went out, wanted to talk to him. They had to be very careful about bumping into, the bump in meeting or whatever they call it. But he couldn't even, most of these coaches are pretty cheap, but he said he couldn't even buy him a cup of coffee. Think about it, because it was an NCAA violation. Yeah. Now it's just so crazy to me that we're at the point where, hey, that cup of coffee is now so you can't buy him a cup of coffee, but it's okay to write a $2 million.
Right.
Wow, that's insane.
Hey, Pat, to slide over just a little bit. I think this has changed a bit, but I want to ask you. I think when the NIL first started, female athletes were a real catch, if that's the right word. Is that still the case with all the chaos that's happened in football and basketball?
So I'll tell you this, outside of, and I look at strictly when I'm talking about our marketing clients, our number one client is a female basketball, formerly from Penn State at Richmond, Anna Camden. She's got an unbelievable social media following. She's an influencer. She's got a great story. She's super particular about her image and brands. She's up there as number 1 or 2 right now, along with our second ranked athlete in true marketing dollars is a lacrosse player from UMass, Caleb Hammett, and he's done big deals with Under Armour brand. He's done some great deals along the way. So yeah, listen, at the end of the day, for the marketing piece of it and kids being compensated in the marketing field, it truly, there's still that proportion with their social following and their brand awareness out there. So yeah, to answer your question, there is still a great brand for that. Nobody, is really getting the same kind of NIL money that football is for true, recruiting or staying at a school or going in the portal. There are a handful of schools that are trying to figure out ways that have niche sports. Like I know, the Ivy League's really tied up, but they have a great women's hockey program, and they're trying to get creative about how they can get marketing dollars to bring in the best female hockey players. And so it's on the forefront, but let's be real. I mean, football is moving the needle on the big dollars and what's going on out there, for these athletes.
Bill, that's a great point you brought about female athletes. My understanding, of course, the WNBA doesn't make a lot of money once they get from college to there. I'm surprised that a lot of females haven't had the bigger contracts, because staying in school, if you're playing college basketball as a woman, you're entitled to more money, of course, based, moving on to the WNBA. Angel Reese, 1.9 million. And, she needs a bodyguard on campus now because she's fearing for her life walking around with the kind of money she has. Pat, is it going to open up more for women in basketball exclusively, more in basketball, making more money in college versus the WNBA when they get drafted for a year?
Hey, Pat, I think you're muted.
Pat, you're muted there.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
I think, it's a great question. I mean, it's, I think, Bill, I'll throw it back on you. What's your thoughts? I'm kind of stumped on it. I don't have the experience there on that. You guys got me on that one. So
I don't know. I was going to follow. Let me just follow up with the Angel Reese thing. And Pat, I don't know if hopefully you've not had this situation occur, but she's got all this money coming in, and then she gets in trouble. Mm-hmm. Whatever that was all about, she gets suspended, whatever. That's not the marketing person you want to be marketing your product.
No.
How in the world does that work out?
Listen, there's in our deals and a lot of deals we do that are legitimate with companies, there is, just like the pro contracts, there's a code of conduct, morality clause put in there. So if you did have deals, they're gone. And, whatever level they were at, and listen, one of the things I've talked to some big local companies, I won't name them, that I've done a lot of business with on the pro side. They won't touch NIL just because their concern is putting their brand in the hands of an 18, 19, 20-year-old.
Good for them.
I'll say it again.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. You get a deal for, you're sponsored by Burger King and you get caught eating at McDonald's a Big Mac, and you just lost everything, your whole future right there. But that's insane how this has really, come down for the NIL versus what it was before.
It really is. And like I said, there's some pretty cool things that we've learned along the way. We're trying to show these companies, we have a really cool analytics software that shows the collective reach, what their brand's getting out of these deals. Because at the end of the day, they got to see an ROI if they're going to come back and do it again. So the companies that have entrusted us to move forward on this, we've really given them like a lot of information to feel good about their campaign and to do it. And one of the other things, there's a company, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. We're in the initial talks, but Life Brand, have you seen them down at the stadium? Are you familiar with what they do?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so what they do is they have a software that will scrub social media accounts from the inception, from the very first post that a kid did all the way to the end. It's unbelievable. This software, it will take out any bad words, any if they're wearing a shirt that has unfavorable graphics or whatever, and it will literally bring them up and ask, would you delete this post? Yes. It goes through, it brings up all the posts from the history of time. And then what we do is we put a badge on that athlete's account that says their social media has been scrubbed and verified. And that gives some of these companies some comfort. And it's because like I said, you're looking to put your brand in there. And like I said, the big one, like I said, I'm still working. I mean, obviously, being a Philly guys, you get, that we, it's a very popular convenience store that we all go to. And they just are very, very traditional in their marketing and very, conservative in what they want to do. And it's just not just them. It's a lot. Like, what can this student athlete bring my brand? Right. So at the end of the day, so it is a challenge. And we've, our team at Limitless has done a great job of getting companies on board. And we've also used our collective reach to pool our athletes together to make a stronger campaign when we can plug in, 60 athletes at different demographics throughout the country, male, female, and get behind a brand. So it's there still is some strategy involved here, and that's
Right.
that's the stuff I hold on to, and that's what differentiates us with people just writing big checks to get guys. And we just hope that if the big guys go to the right school, we can layer on their earnings, right?
There you go. Well, hey, Pat, I have one final question for me because we could talk about this
Yep.
until next week. The guys that are going into the transfer portal, I know at least I think they still do this. They always had guys going into the draft, always had the ability to have an evaluation done before they declared for the NFL draft by some NFL affiliate, however they did it, to get a feel for whether they're a second rounder, a fifth rounder, or whatever. Is there any evaluation process available for these kids jumping into the college transfer portal, or are they just not happy in this past year and want to go to another one, or are they just chasing dollars, or both?
I think you mentioned 3 things or 4 things. They're all, the answer is yes to all. So except for the part about so what you referred to is a lot of our kids, the students or student athletes that are eligible to come out, or the junior, I believe starts at junior, senior, that can go into the draft. They will they come out with what's called a Blesto report for the NFL, which will kind of target their value. It's a preseason thing, and then as the season evolves, any good agent or scouts will collectively pull together where the kid has developed throughout the season, right? So if he was in the Blesto report, had him as a 3rd rounder to start the season, hey, he did a little better than expected this year. He's now projected at 2nd round, right? But so kids that are looking at that, they don't have something like that for college. Now, kids, I think it's amazing when you talk to kids, even ones that have been trumped. They had a kid dropped in front of them in the portal, where they thought they were going to be having an opportunity to play. They know what systems they work the best in, and some of our athletes have literally come to me and said, that have gone in the portal and said, can this school, and what we've been able to do, we'll send their film to those particular schools that fit, along with collaborations, and see what happens. The student athlete, or this, I keep saying that you got me now thinking of, but
That's good. I like it. Drill it.
the semi-pro athlete, so they now have the ability to look, and quite frankly, they're savvier than most anybody, because they said, hey, this school lost their running back, declared for the draft. The kid that was splitting time with him went in the portal. They have an open, and they know, they can sense. So they're doing their homework too. But you made a great point. At some point, if your school is offering you $100,000 to stay, or $150,000 to stay, and with the promise that you'll get more time this year, and that school you think is a better situation, but they're only able to give you $50,000. Well, are they going to make that jump for less? No, probably not. Right. So
Right.
it comes down to dollars and cents, I think, is where you're going with it. And yeah, I tend to agree that that's going to be the crux of most situations, but not all. I mean, there are kids out there that we've worked with, that I've talked to, that have turned down a lot of NIL money, because guess what? At the end of the day, they feel like they're ready for the NFL, and they don't want to take the chances we talked about earlier, and they believe in themselves, and that's what they want to start the journey to get into the league and get to that second contract where they're set for the rest of their life with their family. And so the good news is that we haven't created a Walking Dead or like zombie apocalypse. They got to give them credit, and they have a great amount of perseverance through what they're doing, and a lot of them still keep the ultimate prize in line, and they're making tough decisions, but decisions that they feel are the best for them and their family. So, and,
Sure.
and not just financially related.
Now, before we get out of here, all of us get out of here, I have one final question, or actually a thought from you. If I'm one of your clients and I'm a junior, and I'll just use Notre Dame for instance, Audric Estime. I'm a Notre Dame fan, of course. He's a junior. He's declared for the draft here. I don't project him probably being first round, maybe late second, possibly third round running back coming out of there. If he walks into your office there and says, "Hey Pat, listen, I got the contract here on the NIL deal, but I really want to go to the NFL this year. I want to bank on my own situation, just like you said earlier, to get that second contract, play through my first one, league minimum, where it may be, go to the second level, bank on that so I can provide everything for my family for the future." What do you say to that, that client at that point? Do you say, "Hey, good luck," or do you say, "Listen, well, I think if we stay one more year, we can get you 3 times the amount of your rookie contract for 4 years"? What do you say to that person as a person and a client?
So it really, like, whether it's me or a certified, you got to look at the person first,
Mhm.
right? And every situation is a little different. I don't know his. So what a good, and believe me, people will beat the heck out of agents all day long, but there are great agents out
Sure.
there, and I've really had a great opportunity to work with some of the finest out there. They should be looking at this. Here's his status in the draft. Here's what next year's draft is going to look like. This
Mm,
side of that, because sometimes, hey, I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the draft that
yeah.
that I thought were going to go pro this year, that have jumped into the portal, right? So it's made the quarterback, your status, a little more favorable in this year's draft. And if you take that NIL money, now you're in a pool with all these, 6 and 7 year, senior quarterbacks
Yeah.
that have to come out next year. And it's created this huge depth, issue of talent in the draft. And there are kids that are going to fall into the priority free agent that if they had gone into the draft this year, they would have probably likely been drafted. And it's
That,
going to happen. So I think that ultimately, unless it's, really life-changing money, if a kid's on the fence, if I'm looking at something where, hey, there's another year where you can get some solid NIL money, or you can go into the draft like you mentioned, second round, first, second, third round. To me, it's a no-brainer to go into the NFL draft and and take it. Unless, like I say, unless it's life-changing money now at the college level, and it's gonna it's gonna supersede what you would make in your first contract. I think that one in the hand is always better than two in the bush, because I have
Sure.
seen those stories, and there are going to be kids that could have been first, or not first, second or third round picks this year, went back to get some money, and they have fallen probably to the tail end of the draft or free agency. And for every Jalen Hurts story, there's those stories out there too. So
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tremendous point, Pat. I
Yeah.
never even thought of that. About looking at the further landscape. What quarterback, take the quarterback position. Like you said, too many guys staying, too many guys going. Where do I fit?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. A whole nother thought process for me.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great thing. Say, I mean, this year there's 5 quarterbacks coming out. Well, you might be number 5 this year. Why don't we wait one more year, collect your money? Well, next year, guess what? You're going to be number 1. That's this a agent and a friend looking out for each other, basically. And I
Right.
love how you said that, Pat, because that goes a long way. A lot of people get the bad rap, like he's all for the money, he's all about himself, but there's an entitlement to being a friend first client, relationship. And I see
Instead
that
of being a
100%.
stinking agent.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen,
Exactly. Exactly.
when
You've probably been called worse, right?
when I talk to parents, I tell them, listen, at the end of the day, when you go through this process with these guys, you're not hiring an agent, you're hiring a family member. And that's what I tell them. And that's truly
Mm,
what a good agent is and what they become. And the goal is that, like you said, he's doing all the homework, giving the kid and his family all the different scenarios to think about. you put them, you throw them in the blender, you put them together, and then you see, what you're most comfortable with. Right. So it's it's a process. There's a lot to think about, but no, like I said, it's crazy times, man. It really is. But
there's a great name right there, Dylan Gabriel. I don't think he's going to be projected in the NFL draft very high. Well, he made $1 million last year, $1 million this year for 2 years of college eligibility. Hey, he's made a lifetime of money. I'll never see $2 million in my lifetime, So
yeah, he's blowing Brock Purdy out of the water.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, you keep hanging around Bill, you might see that kind of money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
You don't know how bad I had to open the checkbook just to get Bill on the show, Pat,
Oh, yeah, right.
And speaking of that, I need an NIL deal for myself to, keep Bill on this network here, because I tell you what, he's a big price tag out there.
Hey, I'm available for hire anytime, guys.
All right. We'll talk afterwards, Bill. I'd like a little cut there then. We can
all right. Sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Pat, before we get out of here, let everybody know, your company, where they can find you at. If there's any, talent out there that wants to reach out to you, let them know where they can find, one of the best damn people out there that's for the client himself, not for himself.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, Sean Clifford, Liam Clifford, former Penn State boys, Green Bay Packer backup right now. My business partners and brothers and friends, they started up Limitless NIL for the athletes, by the athletes. And really that is their credo. That's where they are. Go check them out at limitlessnil.com. And they got a heck of an Instagram page that you guys share for me down the road.
Definitely, we'll link that to our page. Definitely will.
Great, man. That would be awesome. But yeah, it was great talking to you guys. I know you guys have a lot of fun on the show, and I'm happy that you guys had me on. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we'll have to do it again. We'll get into some of the pro talk next time.
All right, Pat. Sure, appreciate you jumping on, my friend.
Pat, real quick, who's going to win the national championship this year?
Michigan.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Harbaugh, man, he's got everybody fired up.
He does. Oh, I tell you. Well, if they do, Pat, please bless us with your presence one more time to, re-say what you said, Michigan as well. So if they win it, or anytime, we would love to have you on there, because Bill and I talk all the time, and this NIL, you brought a lot of light to our eyes, understanding for it, and there's still so many questions that we would like to ask you. Whenever you have time, let us know, and we could do this again, please.
Absolutely. I love to, guys. It was great. Thanks for having me on, and have a blessed night, fellas.
You too. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thanks, pal.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow, Bill. Wow.
Good stuff, Paul.
It is. I tell you. Bill, you know what? Before we get out of here, where can they find you? Of course, the OG of the airways.
Oh, I don't know about that, but Philly Press Box Radio, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. Check us out. Did a show tonight. We're there every night, every Wednesday. 475 times we've done it now.
Whew. Boy, I tell you, Bill, Bill, before we get out, I do want to say to you and your family, I hope you have a blessed, new year coming up here. Stay safe on your voyages back down to Florida from Indiana. That's all I want to say is, you've been a friend all year, Bill, and I want to continue this for next year. Of course, I have nothing but fun doing this show with you every Wednesday night, Bill. And I don't know what I'm going to do when college football's over, Bill. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right? Me neither. But it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. You have a great new year as well.
Definitely, Bill. So my name is Paul Spencer. That is Bill Furman. We'll be back next week, Bill, Wednesday, for one more time talking about the semifinal winner for the BCS Championship, correct?
You bet.
All right. Until then, we'll see you next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. My name is Paul Spencer. That is Bill Furman. Until then, have a great and happy new year, everybody.